How many of you find that a fast and a frenzied pace is pretty much your norm? That you're doing a lot of rushing, and then even more rushing from one thing to another. And that whether it's work or home or school, there is so much to do that there's always one more thing to do. And that even when you collapse exhausted at the end of the day, your mind still has a hard time turning off. And then when you wake up in the middle of the night, your mind's still running. Everyone has seasons when life is a little more hectic and chaotic like that. But how good is it for you if that frenetic pace continues over time? Oh, and if you happen to have kids, well, everybody knows that kids take time. That comes with the territory. But aren't our kids' activities and commitments seeming to multiply at something like warp speed these days? I mean, you barely have time to sit down and breathe before you're taking a deep breath and heading off to another one. And it seems like you almost need some sort of your own personal administrative assistant to keep track of all the times and dates and places that you have to take them. And no day seems safe for family downtime anymore. And the pressure from all the time and the money that those things and activities demand of you, it can get pretty heavy. And at what cost? At what cost? Physically, emotionally, even spiritually? Do you find yourself more frequently getting angry when you can't get there fast enough? How about being frustrated when there doesn't seem enough of you to go around, and that time and energy and even money is in shorter and shorter supply? Or you feel stretched out and stressed and stretched thin and less patient with other people, maybe on edge, maybe even on the edge of burnout. That fast and frenzied and frenetic pace can really take a toll, especially over time. It might even feel like you're that little hamster running on his wheel and spinning, but getting nowhere fast, and you're running almost nonstop and wanting to get off, but you don't know how. Want to know how? Well, here's a 2-word summary. Slow down. Slow down. Now, for a long time, I wasn't very good at that. I'm probably still not very good at that. It's just like I was always more work, go, more, even on vacations. Even on vacations, I'm thinking, well, we can do this, and this, and this, and this, and then, after lunch, I mean, you see that? Go, and I wasn't always very good at taking a day off either. Still working at all that, but I'm learning. I'm starting to take some small steps to get me there and to keep me there. Because what I'm learning is that I can actually speed up by slowing down. And did you know that God actually shows us the way? That slowing down regularly and consistently, that it was actually God's idea? It's because God never intended his children to lead frenzied and anxiety-ridden lives. That's why God actually created time for us to slow down and to experience rest and renewal and to enjoy the life that God's given us and the relationships that God's called us into. The Bible calls that time Sabbath. Let's take a little closer look. Genesis chapter 2.
By the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done.
So the first principle about Sabbath that I see there is that God created time for us to slow down. Now, Genesis tells us that God made everything good, meaning perfect, and that every single day of that week was good, meaning perfect. But according to this creation account, there is something very special about day number 7, the one that God calls not just good, but holy. Holy meaning not only perfect, but also set apart, special, sacred. So what's going on day 7 is God saw a need to pause, to slow down, to rest. Why? Because he was tired? I mean, okay, creating the world, the whole universe and everything in it, that's a lot of work. But God is God, the Almighty God. He does not get tired or weary or worn out. So God didn't rest because he was tired. God rested because he saw our need. He rested because he saw our need for what Sabbath time gives: rest, renewal, and reconnection. Rest, renewal, and reconnection. And so what God did is actually created time for that. In 6 days, God created the world. And then on day number 7, as he rested, God actually created time that is specially set apart for rest. And just like God put the rhythm of the days and the seasons into the DNA of creation and into the DNA of our world, so as he rested here, God also put that rhythm of rest into the DNA of our lives. And God, who needs no rest, rested himself, so he set a pattern for us to follow. So think about this. When we ignore Sabbath rest, just doing our own thing, go, when we ignore that Sabbath rest, we're actually going against the created order, aren't we? And can any long-term good really come from that? No. We need rest. And God knows that. So God created Sabbath rest so we could have time every single week to slow down. And so we could have some special time every single week, some holy time that's set apart for rest, for renewal, and for relationship and reconnection. Time for God, which is always first. Time for yourself, so that you can renew and recharge your body, your mind, and your spirit. And time for people, especially for reconnecting with those people who are closest to you in relationship. Do you need that? Well, you tell me. Maybe, just maybe, God actually knew what he was doing right from the very beginning. But God also knows us. God also knows how we're wired and what our tendencies are. And he knows our tendency to base our worth on, well, primarily achievement and accomplishment. And basing our worth on achievement and accomplishment, that's one of the things that often leads us to pursue that nonstop, pedal to the metal, frenetic pace of life. So check out something else the Bible says about our slowing down for Sabbath. Exodus chapter 20. Listen.
Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy.
So here's the second principle that I see there in Sabbath. God not only created Sabbath, principle number 1, principle number 2, God actually commanded us to slow down for Sabbath. In fact, God commanded us to slow down for a weekly Sabbath. Again, God knows the tendency that we have to set our own schedules and to be our own bosses, and left to our own devices, we do things that aren't healthy or good just because everybody, the crowd around us is doing it, and we feel either the need to fit in or to keep up or both. And we just go, not realizing until it's too late that we are not the Energizer Bunny, and that pace is simply not good for us or for those closest to us. And so, knowing that, God didn't make Sabbath rest optional. God actually commands us, slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Why? Well, because God wants what's good for us. And God knows that rest, that special Sabbath slowing down is good for us. God created it, remember? And God also knows that it's easy for us to think that, well, we can be the exception. The one person for whom over busyness will result not in tiredness, but in fruitfulness. And God says here in this command, it is just not so. So God commands us, slow down. He commands, take the Sabbath. It might be hard, but it is not optional. And committing to keeping that Sabbath rest, well, it actually brings great blessing into our lives. At the risk of getting a little academic, let me take a little bit of time to delve into some of the biblical languages here of Hebrew and Greek to help us understand that. Now, the Hebrew root of the word sanctify or make holy, when it says sanctify or make holy this Sabbath day, also is used as the root of the word betroth. Now, what betroth means is it's a pledge to be married, to commit to this man, to commit to this woman, and then to honor that commitment no matter what. Even if it's hard, even if life is hard, even if you don't particularly feel it in the moment, you do it. You keep that commitment because it's the right thing to do. And then as you keep that commitment, you find that there is, in fact, blessing on that path. Well, what God's saying here, by using that same root, is he's saying when you're keeping the Sabbath holy or sacred or set apart, you're pledging or committing yourself to this time, to Sabbath time. And you're pledging to honor that commitment, whether it's convenient or not. And sometimes keeping the Sabbath is not convenient. And sometimes slowing down isn't easy. But what we do here is we pledge or commit to do it because it's right, because it's good, and we're blessed in doing that. And one of the ways that we're blessed in keeping Sabbath is because slowing down for Sabbath helps us look at time a little differently. Now, Greek has two words for time, kairos and chronos. Chronos time is chronology. It's the calendar. It's the relentless march of the schedule, one thing after another. Kairos, on the other hand, is time of the moment, time of opportunity. It's more not asking what time is it, but what is this time for? Slowing down and committing to Sabbath is the triumph of kairos over chronos, the triumph of serendipitous over the schedule, the triumph of get to over have to, the triumph of joy over the mundane. Sabbath is kairos time. Think of it this way, it's the Father's gift to indulge his children. a day that God intended to fuss over us, and a day that God gave us time to fuss over Him. I read somewhere one time this Sabbath golden rule. It was this: Sabbath is the one day that you must not do the things that you must. Kind of like that. Sabbath is the one day that you must not do the things that you must. See, Sabbath is for slowing down. Slow down to rest. Slow down to embrace what gives life and what gives joy. Slow down to enjoy a change or a departure from what you do the rest of the week. Slow down to do things that fill you up, that leave you feeling rested and refreshed and recharged. Slow down to fuss over God. Slow down to fuss over God and also to let God fuss over you. Sabbath is a day for Kairos to triumph over Chronos. It's a time for being, not just for doing. So take some time before moving on in this conversation to slow down and think about what committing to that sort of Kairos time can look for you in this coming week, right in the week ahead. Go hit pause and ask yourself these questions before moving on. What do I need to do so that I can keep the Sabbath this week? What do I need to do in my plan so that I can keep Sabbath this week? And second question, what do I need to take out of my plans so that I can keep Sabbath this week? Again, what do I need to be doing so I can keep Sabbath? And what do I need to stop doing so I can keep Sabbath this week? Hit pause and spend some time with that right now. That second question, what do I take out of my plans? That's, I think, an especially challenging one for parents these days, because there are so many things that your kids they want to do, and so many options that you have to fulfill those desires. But I think the question isn't, can you do all that? I think maybe a better question is, how much should you do? I know when our kids were in that stage, it was a challenge. And there was a time when I really let them pursue too many things at once. And it had to get to the point where it was just about killing them and us that I had to say, we just can't live this way anymore. Now, several years back, I came across a blog that really would have helped me back then. And so I want to read a part of it to you to hope that maybe that might help you with this whole Sabbath and overscheduling thing. Okay, here it goes. Activities. So many to pursue and so little time. Don't be fooled. The proliferation of activity options for children is a reflection of our cultural affluence, not of a child's need to be well-rounded or socialized. Gobs of money are being made off our often misplaced desires to expose our kids to every possible talent path. How can we choose activities for our family in a way that doesn't compromise Sabbath principles? Because the four Wilkin kids are extremely close in age, our schedule and our finances forced us to limit activities to one or none for each child. Not all families need to impose a limit this low, but it has taught us something our grandparents probably knew. Children who participate in no organized activities at all still lead lives full of activity and joy. To many parents, the idea of a child on no sports team, in no music lessons, at no club meetings is completely foreign and a little frightening. Won't they get bored? Won't they drive me crazy lurking around the house? Won't they miss out on an NFL career and blame me? Or my personal favorite, won't other parents think I'm a bad parent? I would answer all these questions with maybe, but who cares? As is often lamented, parenting is not a popularity contest. With that in mind, here are some good and highly unpopular questions to ask when evaluating which activity to pursue. And this one's, I think this one's really good, so you might just even want to take a screenshot of these as they come up. Here's our questions. Does it sabotage weekend downtime or worship? Does it sabotage family dinners? Does it sabotage bedtime? Does it pull our family apart or push us together? Is it an activity my child can enjoy or benefit from into adulthood? And can we afford it? And then she goes on. Notice that does my child enjoy it is not on the list. So often I hear parents justify keeping a child in a time-sucking activity because he loves it so much. Kids love Skittles and Mario Kart, so that dates it a little bit, but kids love Skittles and Mario Kart so much, but they don't get to decide if, when, and how much to consume because children possess a limited range of life experience. It is difficult for them to conceive of happiness outside their current circumstance. And she concludes this section this way: it is our job to help them learn. Food for thought? I think so. Especially those questions that she raises. In fact, I think even if you don't have kids at home or you don't have kids, it still perhaps gives you something to think about in structuring your own time and making Sabbath a part of it. Because remember, God created Sabbath and God commanded Sabbath not to be a burden, but to help you enjoy life and to give you a framework for slowing down. So that you can have time for rest and renewal and relationship. Now, you're hearing that, and there is a danger. There's a danger into just making Sabbath another to-do list, another thing to accomplish, another rule book, one more activity in the list of activities, one more spiritual thing that we need to do, that we need to accomplish, that we need to get better at, that we need to do better than others. So it's like this. Let's see. I checked my schedule. I evaluated that. Check. Went to church this week. Check. Gave an offering. Check. Helped out at church. Check. Stopped to notice a few things about the world and about God. Check. Resting? Oh, I think I got about a half an hour to get that in. Check. See, I've done Sabbath, and I've done Sabbath better than others. Well, if that's where we end up, we're missing the point of Sabbath. And on a day made for Kairos time, we're letting Chronos triumph again. The danger for religious people like me is letting Satan twist Sabbath into keeping a list of things that we need to do with our time rather than having Sabbath be simply what God created it to be. Simply time to be. Time to be. Time to be with God. Time to be with others. Time to be with yourself. I like how Jesus put it when the Pharisees were grumbling and complaining and upset about what he was doing on the Sabbath. Jesus said this, Mark chapter 2, verse 27. Then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for Sabbath. There's a third principle here. Not only did God create Sabbath and command Sabbath, Sabbath isn't for religion. It's for relationship. Or put another way that Jesus did, Sabbath isn't about the rules. Sabbath is for you. Sabbath is for you. Sabbath is God's gift to you and God's gift for you. So if I find myself, and frankly, when I find myself going in that place where my Sabbath ends up being just one more place where I'm speeding up, then I need to slow down. I need to slow down again because Sabbath is not about rules and religion. It's about rest and renewal and relationship. So God created Sabbath, God commanded Sabbath, and God created and commanded Sabbath for you. So how do you embrace Sabbath? In a world of go, 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 how do you embrace a specific time for slowing down? For rest and renewal and relationship? Well, let me suggest a few things that you can do that might help you enjoy what God gives and do what God intends. Small shift number 1, take time for rest on your Sabbath. That might be taking a nap, might be sitting around and doing nothing, might be taking a walk, reading a book, vegging in front of the TV, football, a movie, some show that you're binging. It might be going to bed earlier that night. All those things are rest. And see, that downtime is one important way to avoid burnout and ulcers and high blood pressure. It's a way to recharge your physical batteries so you can get back to working hard when that rat race, that go, 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 go begins again. It's like your gas tank is empty at the end of the week, and rest is what fills you up again. And you don't need to feel guilty about it. For a long time I did. I'd sit around, and if there'd be nothing to do and I'd be trying to rest, I'd think, well, no, but there's this to do, and I should do this, and I could do this, and Mama didn't raise no lazy boy, so I'd feel guilty. And then I read this about Sabbath and rest. I'm like, no, don't feel guilty about it. God created it, and He commands it because He knows you need it. Shift number 2, also take time for family on your Sabbath. See, God actually gave us a day where He intends for us to use our time to reconnect with each other and to be refreshed in our relationships. And those quality time moments that we're all looking for and longing for, well, you can't make them happen simply by scheduling them in your calendar. Like, okay, from 3 o'clock to 3:15 on Sabbath, that quality time is going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. Those quality time moments are kairos moments, not chronos moments. They happen sort of spontaneously. But what that requires is, well, quantity time. That you have some quantity time so that those quality time moments happen as you're reconnecting in relationship. So, do what God intends for Sabbath and make that shift and take time together as a family on Sabbath. And then shift number 3, take time for God on your Sabbath. Take time for God on Sabbath. Here's what Jesus said, Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Come to me, you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Well, isn't that what Sabbath is about? Rest. Rest for your body, rest for your spirit, rest for especially your soul. Right? And when we get together to worship with other people, like we do here at Concordia every Sunday, it does a few things. Well, you're putting on the brakes for an hour or so from that frenetic pace of life that you have on most days. You're also learning something about priorities and putting God first. And learning about priorities will help you figure out how to slow down in other areas of your life. And then you're receiving from God, you're receiving the rest and renewal and restoration that only Jesus can give and that you need for the week that's coming up. I mean, think of it this way. A lot of times we come with confused priorities, and Jesus in worship gives us time to remember that the world revolves around Him, not around us. We come often as stressed out people, and Jesus gives us time to be still and to know that He's God. We come to worship often as lonely people, and Jesus gives us time as we're worshiping together with other people around us to see that we are not alone. And we come as hurting people often, and Jesus gives us time to see that He can fix, and He does fix what's broken. We come as sinful people, worn out from carrying around a load of guilt, and Jesus in worship gives us time to see and to sense that we're forgiven and that we can start fresh because He's already borne our burdens on the cross. And we come as people often who are stressed out from trying to do all our work, even all our work for God. And Jesus gives us a time and a place to lay our burdens down. Let me revisit that Matthew chapter 11 passage, this time from the Message paraphrase. I think it puts it pretty well. Are you tired, worn out, burned out? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. At least one day in 7, Jesus gives us that time and actually commands us to take that time for that sort of rest and renewal and refreshment that, frankly, we need every day. And you know what? When we make the shift to actually commit to doing what God says and taking that weekly Sabbath, then maybe, just maybe, the rest of our week goes a little better too.